Richo Jones. We're minus Richo, and I'm sorry about that. He's had a bit of a rough day, but he would want me to say to you he is okay. So no alarmist talk, but Richo, you get better and get better quickly. It is, of course, you heard young James Bracey say it's grand final week. Is it going to be Swanee's week, or is it going to be the Rabbitohs week, or perhaps the boys from the mountain who are the giant killers, Penrith? But we'll have a look at a bit of that later. Today in New York, we have 120 of the world's leaders, including President Obama and the UK Prime Minister David Cameron, attending a United Nations Secretary-General Summit on climate change. They're at it again, would you believe? Tony Abbott won't be there. I'll be having a look at that issue a little bit later as to where we are and all of that. But look, I thought we'd just start a couple of things. I think the good story of the week, which has been ignored almost entirely, is the performance of the New Zealand Prime Minister John Key, who has won his third election in a row. Now, for a New Zealand Prime Minister under a New Zealand political leader, under the system of elections in New Zealand, where it's a very complicated proportional representation system, for him to win over 50% of the seats is extraordinary, and it is his third election victory, and it's a measure of the kind of man he is. He's very knowledgeable, very much man of the people, but it was his economic strength that got him over the line. They are an extraordinary economic story, and there are lessons in all of this for Australia. They are forecasting a growth rate of 4% next year. For the first time, they produced a surplus of $300 million in May. Our deficit is $30 billion. John Key has demonstrated a capacity to control expenditure and revenue. He has raised the GST to 15% with no outcry from the New Zealand public, and, would you believe, has a Medicare co-payment for every person who goes to the doctor of $30. This is regarded as one of the extraordinary success stories in the world economy. New Zealand is one of only three economies who, since the GFC, have boasted a surplus. The other one, Switzerland and South Korea. So to our New Zealand friends over there, you've got a lot to be proud of. They've done very, very well indeed. Inflation is virtually nothing, 1.6%. Unemployment is going down. It's a hell of a story. And in spite of a tremendous scare campaign run against Prime Minister Key in the election, he has absolutely romped in. He could govern in his own right, but he was in government with three minor parties. He has said he'll stick with those three minor parties when he returns to government. So, a wonderful story. Meanwhile, of course, the awful world story is about the terrorist threat. And there are some people, of course, particularly in the ABC and on the left, who want to have you believe that this is some kind of invention. I just draw your attention to the comments by this chap who is, I call him the spokesmaniac for the Islamic State, a bloke called Abu Muhammad al-Adnani. He has posted online a call to all his supporters and against all of those countries that are prepared to go to war against the Islamic State. And he mentions Australia 3 times in 11 pages. And he says this, amongst other things: if you can kill a disbelieving American or European, especially the spiteful and filthy French, or an Australian or a Canadian, or any other disbeliever from the disbelievers waging war, including the citizens of the countries that entered into a coalition against the Islamic State, then rely upon Allah and kill him in any manner or way, however it may be. Don't ask for anyone's advice. Don't seek anyone's verdict. Kill the disbeliever, whether he is civilian or military, for they have the same ruling. Both of them are disbelievers. And he called on his followers to martyr themselves, saying if they can't get a bomb or a gun to kill a Westerner, they should, quote, smash his head with a rock, or slaughter him with a knife, or run over him with a car, or throw him down from a high place, or choke him, or poison him. And in a threat to the West, this fellow, the spokesperson for Islamic State, or ISIL, whatever they call themselves, quote, you will pay the price when your economies collapse. You'll pay the price when your sons are sent to wage war against us, and they are returned to you as disabled amputees, or inside coffins, or mentally ill. You will pay the price as you walk on your streets. You'll not feel secure, even in your bedrooms. We will conquer your Rome, break your crosses, and enslave your women by the permission of Allah the Exalted. And so it goes on about Obama and everybody else. And yet you'll see on other television stations and read in some papers and on the national broadcaster an apologia that this sometimes scare campaign and that it's designed to attack Muslims and alienate the Muslim community. The bulk of the Muslim community understand that they are as much at risk as we are. And indeed, there are Muslims supportive of Islamic State who are murdering Muslims and Christians. So this is an area, of course, which Tony Abbott is addressing. I have a bit to say about that after the news. But the news next with Tim Webster.
Hey, Joe, thank you very much. The Pentagon